Welcome to Inside The Mavs, the official Mavericks podcast of 97.1 The Freak. I'm your host, Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Appreciate you joining me here for the latest episode presented by Aura. Make sure that you download and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. You can also, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel at Kevin Gray Sports, like and comment and subscribe to my channel as well. So excited for my guest today. We've got 14 games left in the regular season. Kyrie Irving hitting incredible buzzer beaters to beat the reigning NBA champion Denver Nuggets. A lot to get into on today's episode. Joining me today from Locked On Mavs, the host of the Locked On Mavs podcast. You can find him on Twitter at Nick Van Exit. He is Nick Angstadt. Nick, what's going on?
You know, just still trying to figure out exactly how Kyrie got that shot off. Jokic draped all over him. Lefty. Is it a hook shot? Is it like a floater? What was it? I don't even know, but I'm calling it the WTF floater is what I'm calling it.
It was unbelievable. Like,
Insane.
it was, I'm going to call it a sky hook, a 21-foot sky hook, because, and I was telling a good friend of ours, Reggie Atatula, about that, the shot and the audacity to take that shot. Like, forget just the fact that he made it. Forget the fact that he decided that, but the audacity to try that in that moment was just insane to me. And then for obviously it to go in just puts the cherry on top. But I think that just speaks to the level of creativity that Kyrie Irving possesses in his game, that he even thought, you know what, might as well try it, and we'll see if it goes down. And next thing you know, he hits one of the best buzzer beaters that you'll ever see in the NBA.
But it's just like, it's so him, though. I can't think of anybody else that gets that shot off in the same way, right? I mean, does Steph Curry do that? Maybe. Does Damian Lillard do that? No, probably not. Like, they just don't have the same kind of, like, a 6'2" player hitting that shot, too. Like, Luka, I can imagine taking a shot like that, like having the audacity, because he's done weird stuff. He had the game winner against Memphis where he was like leaning forward and doing weird stuff. There's just like nobody that makes insane looking shots like that as much as Kyrie. And I think you saw that from some of the NBA players that responded. Like, we saw Jalen Brunson and you saw Damian Lillard and guys like tweeting about it afterwards. And just like, that man is one of the most talented, blah, 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 like, just insane. It's insane that he got it off. Insane that it went down. The picture of him like looking at his left hand too was
just iconic. Yes,
perfect. It was absolutely
perfect. My favorite reaction, and I'm sure it was for a lot of people, watching Luka fall over on the sideline and just like, oh my gosh, like I've never seen like he was all of us. Yes, he was all of us in that moment. Like, I've never seen anything like that before. And I think it speaks to, and I've heard a lot of this conversation over the last 24 hours or so, is the idea that hoopers respect Kyrie in his game so much that they know that when they see something like that, there isn't that many people on this planet that could make or even attempt a shot like that, let alone make one. And I think there's a healthy respect for Kyrie in his game because of how good he is, that he is able to rise up in those moments and then have the creativity to take a shot and make a shot like that.
It's just him. That's what he does. Like all the work on the backboards with the smaller backboards and doing the weird stuff before the game, like the weird timing and rhythm things that he does. Like, you also have to think about the hesitation that he had to take before he actually got into the lefty floater, is that he had to take a split second. And there's that shot where it looks like he steps out of bounds, but he doesn't. And like, he had to do all that just perfect just to even get the shot off at all. That's so much skill and like rhythm and all that, like all added up into that to then eventually take that shot, make it. And then now we're talking about a Mavs amazing win instead of maybe an overtime loss.
Oh boy, or just a loss altogether, because Jamal Murray had a chance to put him up with 4 seconds left. He missed the jumper that would have given him the go-ahead, lead there. I mean, look, for all the way that the Mavericks won this game in incredible fashion, I mean, let's not forget, Mavs were up at 13 at one point in the fourth quarter, and Nuggets go on a 20-4 run. In fact, had a lead before Luka hits the three-pointer at the top of the key to tie the game in 105. Yeah. Like, if Luka doesn't hit that shot, we're talking about one of those fourth quarter collapses again. And Luka and Kyrie bailed them out when they needed to most to win that game, a game that they really had to have.
Reggie and I talked about this on Locked On Mavs. 6:50 left in the fourth quarter. They're up 13, like you said.
Yep.
Then the Nuggets score, I think, a Michael Porter Jr. 3 on one end. Come back in the other end. It's a 10-point game. And then Luka and Kyrie run the prevent, like run the clock down, like run the ball, stand in the backfield, like Luka standing in front of him like an offensive lineman, Kyrie just like monitoring the ball behind him. And they run
Landon Thomas had an incredible photo of that. That was a fantastic photo. It was incredible.
I sit right behind him. And so that's like the exact angle that I was watching it too, where you just see him like stand in front of him, like right in line. But then they run 20 seconds off the clock. And then from that point till Luka's 3, they scored 4 points. 2 of them on 2 separate Luka trips to the free throw line where he split the pair. Do you like or hate the like running out the clock, them just standing there? Because to me, it felt like, all right, it was prevent offense a little bit. And I just don't like it. It's a little like, this is a little basketball gaudy. Like I'm going like a little like ethereal. Like I think it disrespects the game a little bit.
Oh, okay. Okay, so prevent offense. Okay, what I didn't like about the moment itself or the moments in thereafter, like continue to attack, continue to play. Like they had killed them on the glass throughout the entirety of the game. And I thought with them attacking and getting to the rim and best trying to get to the free throw line, like why stop doing that in those moments, even with the potential of a run that Denver had? That's the part that kind of bothered me in essence, because that's really early on to start trying to bleed clock. That's really early on to say, you know what, let's start running clock down.
6 minutes left.
Yeah, 6 minutes. We're talking about still half a quarter to play here, and it still didn't even work because Denver found a way to get the lead, before Luka and Kyrie bailed them out. But yeah, I didn't like the lack of aggressiveness, I would say, in those moments, because I mean, look, you had taken it to them throughout the course of the game. In fact, that third quarter, you only gave up 18 points in that third. Like you were playing well on both ends of the floor. I mean, you only scored 26, but my point is you were playing well defensively to give yourself confidence that, you just continue to attack them, because clearly the Nuggets were off in that game against Dallas on Sunday.
Yeah, Nuggets were absolutely off. But yeah, the Mavs offense just didn't execute late in the game. And maybe some of it is because like PJ Washington can't hit the broadside of a barn. That Maxey quite literally couldn't hit a barn if he had to take a shot right now and hit it. And so you had 2 guys that were very crucial defensively that just can't give you anything offensively shooting the ball right now. PJ was doing some good things, attacking and with his floater, and like the offensive rebounds were helpful for sure. But like all of a sudden, and then you have Gafford too, who can only get the ball when he is running a pick and roll. And so you're like, all right, the other 3 players that are playing with Luka and Kyrie just cannot do anything offensively, and that's going to limit you too. And so it was just kind of a weird moment at the end where like, and maybe that's why they ran the prevent offense. Maybe that's why they were like, we got to run some clock down because we only have a couple more buckets in us to like for the rest of this game because of how much Luka and Kyrie had done the whole game. And then, what could they have expected from a Gafford, a PJ Washington, and a Maxey late in the game? Tim was giving you nothing too. There's just no other option to turn to.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up because that's one of the questions that we have for folks who submitted questions for us today here on the Inside the Mavs podcast with guest Nick Angstadt of Locked On Mavs. One of the questions that we had came from Dylan Heath at dheath03 on X or Twitter or whatever you like to call it these days. Why do we see Maxey closing out games instead of PJ Washington? And I think some of that is, well, yesterday, I mean, Maxey was on the floor. We've seen Maxey closing with PJ Washington. And I think for some folks, they've wanted to see the Mavs close a little bit bigger. But Jason Kidd's talked about it quite a bit, where he feels like the flexibility that they have defensively with Maxey's ability to switch, you're going to see him out there quite a bit along with PJ Washington and his athleticism. I think that's why you continue to see Maxey, even with the struggles that he's had offensively, he provides you probably your best defensive lineup if you're going to have PJ and Maxey on there at the same time and not have maybe Gafford or Lively closing, because Lively's not going to close right now. It seems like Gafford, if one of the 2 is on the floor, it's going to be Gafford at least at this point right now.
Yeah, I disagree with the premise of the question. I don't think Maxey is closing instead of PJ Washington. I think that there's
Yeah.
maybe been like a few instances where he's been out there late and PJ hasn't. PJ, since the trade, second in fourth quarter minutes on the Mavs. Second, not Luka and Kyrie 1-2. Like he's second in minutes. So he's played a lot in fourth quarters. He's closed a lot of games. I don't think he's not closing. But I think the nature of the question is, why is Maxey closing at all? Because I think he has become the new Tim Hardaway Jr., where, all right, Tim Hardaway Jr., kid pushed him down the rotation. Now let's find a new scapegoat for all the problems, and it's become Maxey Kleber. And I can just tell you the rationale for why kid puts him out there, right? Like you mentioned a lot of the things, is that he's got size. He can defend a lot of different players with size that the Mavericks really can't do. Him and one of the reasons why Jokic struggled so much was because you had Maxey and a Lively and a Gafford out there at the same time running. All right, Maxey fronts Jokic, tries to stay with him, foot speed wise. And then if he gets past him, then you have a help defender in Gafford or in Lively behind him to be able to help from there. And it's like that combo was so crucial down the stretch and crucial the whole second half. I went back and for subtext, I have a subtext line where people can text in and I send extra content and stuff. I watched the whole second half. So if you want to watch that with me, go check out that. I have a link on my Twitter, I think. And so like I was watching it, I was like, man, like this duo of like, it's a 2-layered defense basically, where you have Maxey up there and then you have one of the centers behind him. And like, you just can't run that necessarily with anybody else. You can try with PJ, but then you're giving up size to Gordon, or you're giving up size to Michael Porter Jr. It's really hard to try and defend Denver. And Denver didn't even play well offensively at all. And the Mavs still had like a solid defensive game against them.
Yeah, and you've got to try and do multiple things with Jokic, because not only are you trying to defend him as a scorer, but more so you're trying to defend him as a passer, because he's so good with his ability to find guys. Especially one thing that, and I'm sure you saw it throughout the course of especially the first quarter, I got so sick of Aaron Gordon flashing to the dunker spot, and next thing you know, Jokic is finding him, for some easy buckets at the rim. Obviously, Michael Porter Jr. played well in that first quarter, but those are the things that you're just trying to defend Jokic with, not just him as a scorer, but I think he's even more dangerous as a passer, because he is so good finding guys, especially when they're moving toward the rim in a lot of ways that like Gordon and other guys are able to do. And I thought they did a good job, more so in the second half, of trying to ensure that they were creating some chaos and not allowing him to have the kind of vision to be able to see these guys to be able to cut to the basket and make things happen at the rim that way.
Yeah, when you're guarding Jokic, you're guarding the whole team at the same time, right? Like there's certain players like Luka. I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but like when you're guarding Luka, you're guarding everybody else at a standstill basically, and then Luka just does such insane stuff, insane work getting past his defender and then getting the basket. It's really hard work that Luka does, and then insane passes he has to make to get to those places. But with Jokic, it's all moving. It's all like everything at once, which makes it so hard to defend, because you have to pay attention to what Jokic is doing and pay attention to what your defender is doing at the same time, because he'll get that pass right there exactly on the money. And like not a lot of players can make the passes that he can, especially on the move, and especially being the height that he is too. Like he's just a 7-foot fulcrum of the offense. And I thought the Mavs did a good job of like defending him, but then staying with their guys and making sure that, they didn't get a lot of that backdoor stuff like you mentioned.
Which gets us obviously for today is, obviously spent, a little bit of time, dissecting what happened with Denver, because, it was an incredible game. The last thing I'll say on the game itself before we get to kind of what we think will happen over these next 14 games, especially with a couple of games still against Sacramento that they've got next week, the way that they dominated on the glass. They were a plus 22 on the glass. They had 21 offensive rebounds, including 7 in that pivotal third quarter, where Kyrie scored the final 7 points of the quarter and really kind of took control, of the game for the Mavericks in that third period. But you go back to the first 2 games against Denver. Denver's a top 10 team in scoring points in the paint, and they had just 38 points in the paint for the entirety of the game. And a lot of that had to do with not just the defense that they were playing, but the fact that the Mavericks were limiting them to really one possession and not allowing multiple chances, at the rim in terms of second chance points as well, where Denver only had 6. I was just astounded at which the level that the Mavericks rebounded with, whether it was Washington, Lively, Gafford. I was just blown away by the way that they rebounded in this game.
Denver has not allowed more than 19 offensive rebounds all season. The Mavs got 22 now that I'm seeing. I think they added one since last night.
Are you
at least the box score that the Mavs got another offensive rebound since then. Yeah, the box score.
I see it. Yep.
Box score I'm just looking at. They gave him another one. It was probably some kind of tap out or something like that. But yeah, they got 22. The last time the Mavs had at least 21. That was the last time I looked it up. Do you want to guess? Did you see what the starting lineup was the last time the Mavs had 21 offensive rebounds in a game?
I remember. I think I saw this. The only person I remember, I think I said two randomly. Dirk was one of them, obviously.
Dirk.
I think the other one was like Jose Calderon or something like that. It was
Jose Calderon, Sean Marion, the Matrix, Samuel Dalembert, and Monte Ellis have it all. That was the five. It was in 2014. That was the last time the Mavs had 21 offensive rebounds. Last time they had 22 offensive rebounds was 2007. I mean, we're talking about like some of you listening weren't even born last time the Mavs had 22 offensive rebounds in a game.
We're talking about what, 10 and 15 years ago at that point, or 10 and 17 years ago is what we're talking about. 2007 and 2000. Yeah, that's kind of insane to think that they hadn't had that many offensive rebounds in a game. But I mean, my point going back to it was Denver dominated them in the first two games in the paint. And now this time around, the Mavericks just simply, they weren't having it in the paint. And is that a sign for you of things to come with their ability to rebound the way that they did? Or was it just kind of an anomaly in this game just because they were, it's funny because Michael Malone was so pissed off. He called a timeout. Gaffer got a bucket, on a second chance opportunity. Mike Malone is just screaming, "Get an effing rebound."
Never thought I would ever see an opposing coach do that about the Mavericks. Like how many times has Carlisle or Kidd done that about the Mavs? Like,
yes,
not getting rebounds against somebody else. And I think it's just a sign of Kidd embracing what this team is now. This team has a new identity. This team is no longer the 5-out. Like, we're going all threes or nothing. Like it's just, we got no other option if we don't hit threes. The Mavs have won a couple of games now where they haven't hit like barely any threes, basically. Just a brand new thing for this Mavericks team. And I think it's Kidd leaning into what this team is finally. And just realizing, all right, this is a big team, and they're gonna get a lot of boards. They're gonna get a lot of defensive pressure in the middle, and then they're just only gonna get enough offense from Luka and Kyrie, and then hopefully one other guy steps up in some way, hits some threes or does something. They just need one other guy to do something, and then they can get wins that way.
Mavericks won a game where they only hit 9 threes and shot 25.7% from three. I would not think that the Mavericks could win a game shooting that poorly from downtown, because what's been the MO for this team all year long? They've been bad defensively, and then when they're knocking down threes, they're pretty much unbeatable. Now they're starting to win games when they're shooting terribly from downtown, but now using other ways, as you mentioned, to win games. And I think that's one of the big takeaways from the game against Denver, is that I hope going forward that they can continue to find different ways to win games, even when shots aren't falling. Because I think Denver's game was a perfect example of trying to find another way to win when shots aren't falling.
Yeah, you just get more shots, right? That's the answer. Get offensive rebounds and get more shots, get more attempts. It's all a math problem, basically, right? And the math problem for the Mavericks used to be, all right, we got to get a requisite number of threes up more than our opponent so that our math can even out, so that we have a better chance. Like, if they put up 35 threes, the Mavs got to put up 45. It's got to be 10 more threes so that it evens out eventually, and eventually like the Mavs make more shots. And then that was when the Mavs went to the Western Conference Finals. That was kind of their math problem. And Isaac and I would get on the podcast after games and be like, they just didn't get up enough threes. Just wasn't enough. Like the math just wasn't mathing for them at that point. Now your math is different, and now you have to figure out, all right, how many more chances do we need? How many more is it? I don't know if it's more offensive rebounds or more points in the paint, or I don't know what their exact problem is right now. Maybe there won't be one, but yeah, the Mavs, before the trades, the Mavs had not won a game when they shot under 30% from three. They have won 3 of them now against Golden State, Washington, and then now Denver. It's kind of wild that they can win those types of games now when it used to just be like a death sentence.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break here on Inside the Mavs and hear from today's partner of our video and our podcast. Let's hear from Aura. Today's video is brought to you by Aura. Do a Google search on your name and email address to see how much information comes up about you. I was devastated by the amount of information that I could be seeing searching my name and profile, and I knew then I needed to be protected for not just myself, but also for my family. Data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, your relatives, it's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats that I can't see. It's really easy to set up, so I don't have to download several different apps to get things like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more. I get everything at one affordable price. You may already have one of these tools already, but not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. Aura is always on, doing the hard work to protect me and my family so I can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to aura.com/Kevin Gray to start your 2-week free trial. Please see the link in the description. Back here on Inside the Mavs here with my guest today, Nick Angstadt of Locked on Mavs, talking Mavericks basketball as we get ready for the final 14 games of the regular season. Of course, the Mavericks coming off a terrific win over the Denver Nuggets. Before we go any further on the Mavericks, I'm not going to lie to you. I got to stop down on this real quick because I don't know if I believe it or not. But apparently, I just saw this on Twitter. Brian Windhorst of ESPN talking about the Pelicans, who, of course, have been playing really well this year. Apparently, Zion Williamson has lost 25 pounds so far since the in-season tournament, which I don't know if I necessarily believe when it comes to Zion Williamson. So, who knows? But, yeah. Hopefully we'll get I don't know if Nick maybe having some internet issues that is preventing him from being on the podcast. Oh, no. We'll try to get Nick back here in just a minute here on the Inside the Mavs podcast. Yep, we'll get him back there here in just a second. Oh, he just let me know. If you're watching this, he let me know he lost connection, so he's going to try to get back here in just a minute. We were talking, of course, before the unfortunate issues. Oh, is he back? Oh, he's back. There he is. We back. This is going to be great.
Shout out Spectrum Internet. Killing it today. Same shooting percentage from 3 as the Mavs do today. Spectrum.
Oh, wow. That's going to be great for the pod, by the way. People are going to be like, what is going on here? No, it's okay. It happens. Shout out to the technology and the internet connection. But I don't know if you heard me before you dropped off that apparently Brian Windhorst of ESPN is reporting that, and this is a non-Mavericks note, but apparently Zion Williamson has lost 25 pounds since the in-season tournament, and that's why he's been playing so incredibly well. Which I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily believe that my man's lost 25 pounds since the in-season tournament.
I do. He looks different.
He does look great. I'm just like, but that's 25 pounds in season, losing that in the middle of the season. That's difficult to do.
I have like I can wake up in the morning and be like 5 pounds less than I was the day before. Like there can be some water weight in this too, right? When you're up to like whatever he was, it's got to be like 340 something, like what Shaq was. Remember, like you can lose 25 pounds and still be like overweight still, right? Like 25 pounds may not be a lot to him, like it is to something. Like some people don't have 25 pounds to lose. He had it, and so like I can get that.
I will say Zion has looked a lot more shredded these days.
Looks great.
And the Pelicans are playing, some terrific basketball. Willie Green, I'm sure, is on the short list. He is on the short list for NBA Coach of the Year. Him, Jamal Mosley. I'm trying to think of a couple others. Mark Daigneault from obviously from Oklahoma City. Chris Finch from Minnesota. Those guys. I would probably even throw Joe Mazzulla on that list, actually, with Boston. As well for NBA Coach of the Year. Like it's a deep list for
when your roster is the best roster, I don't think you get extra credit for doing the thing that you're supposed to do.
You're talking about with Joe Mazzulla in Boston?
Yeah. It's like the Mavs played the Celtics and you go, all right, Luka and Kyrie are Luka's definitely better than all the Celtics. Then it's like Kyrie and Tatum are probably like similar levels. Tatum's probably better than him. And then it's like, when do you take another Maverick? You probably go like, there's probably like 5 more Celtics you take, and then you go a Maverick, probably, right?
Yeah. I mean, Boston's been incredible. They've been destroying everything pretty much in their path. But
been great.
I mean, no, go ahead.
No, they've been great. That was it.
Oh yeah. They've been fantastic. But yeah, there's a deep list for NBA Coach of the Year, as far as that's concerned. So that'll be interesting to see how that falls for the rest of the year. But I mean, that gets us honestly to our next conversation here today. I mean, the Mavs got 14 games left. They've got 2 games against Sacramento coming up as part of what I believe is a 5-game road trip that they will be on. Their longest road trip of the second half of the, or I guess I should say post All-Star break, if you will. And that really is going to be huge as far as the Western Conference standings are concerned, because as it stands right now, Sacramento's in 6 percentage points ahead of Dallas as far as the playoff situation is concerned. Sacramento holds the tiebreaker, having won the first couple of games against Dallas so far this year. And then you've got Dallas in 7th. Then you've got Phoenix in 8th. They dropped from 6th to 8th after losing to a Giannis-less Milwaukee Buck team on Sunday. And now the Mavericks kind of have a chance to really kind of control their own destiny. They still have a couple of games left against Golden State as well. Where are you in terms of the final 14 games of this season, knowing that the Mavericks really have a chance to, as I said, kind of control their own destiny down the stretch here?
They really do. I mean, you just look through who's their toughest opponent, right? It's like Sacramento on the second night of a back-to-back. Mavs go at Utah on Monday, March 25th, and then they go at Sacramento March 26th. Like, that one's pretty tough. That one's an interesting one. But Utah to Sacramento, it's not like that long of a flight. Oklahoma City at the end of the season, but they might not be playing for anything.
They might not be playing for much,
at the end. And so like that one gets degraded a little bit. You've got the Warriors, those 2 games. One of them's at Golden State. The other one is home, second night of a back-to-back. So that one could be difficult, but I don't know the state of that team right now. And the Mavericks may match up really well with them now because of the rebounding and the like being big and all that kind of stuff. And then there's Miami. Mavs have already beat Miami this season, and they're not the same kind of like scary that they've been. I mean, there's not really many like definite tough games. This Denver game was the toughest one they were going to have the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you look at it and go, yeah, they do control their own destiny. There are some lighter stretches in the schedule with some teams for sure. Teams that are not playing for a whole lot or anti-playing for things basically at this point in their season. And then those 2 Sacramento games are really, really big. Like those could be massive.
Yeah, and like I said, that's part of a 5-game road trip. You've got at Utah, 2 games against Sacramento, which is interesting because the Sacramento baseball series, quote unquote, that they're playing, they play on Tuesday, and then they'll play the next game until Friday. So they get a couple of days off between the Sacramento games in the same city. So that's kind of interesting that they would have a couple of days off there. Then they go to Houston and then Golden State before they come home against Atlanta, Golden State, Houston for those 3 games there. So it's funny because their final 5 games of the season, at home against Houston, on the road against Charlotte and Miami, then back home versus Detroit, and then on the road against OKC to finish up the season. One of the games that in there is kind of tricky, at least in my mind. I don't know if people have been watching, but Houston quietly has been playing pretty well as of late. I know that Şengün is going to be pretty much out for the rest of the season with the ankle injury that he's got. But quietly, Houston's been playing a lot better as of late. But that game's at home, so I don't think they should be too concerned about losing that game.
They should complete disagree with that one because the tiebreakers. So the tiebreakers are, so if the Mavs are, let's say they win both Sacramento games, or even if they tie with the Pelicans. So the tiebreakers go head-to-head record, so they'd be tied. Then it's like, are you the division leader? And if they're tied with them, then they're not necessarily the division leader. So then it goes down to, and the Kings won't be the division leader for them either because of the Clippers are number 1 in the Pacific. Then it goes to your record in the division. And the Mavs need to win the San Antonio game coming up and the 2 Houston games. If they win those, then they'll have a better chance to be higher up in their division. And so, like, it gets down to these weird little things where, like, we literally don't care about division besides maybe schedule the rest of the season until right now where you're like, okay, all of a sudden those San Antonio and Houston games mean a lot.
For some reason, I thought their division record was a little bit better than that, to where they maybe had a little bit of a cushion.
Well, they're
with
right there, but like Mavs are 8-5 in their division. Pelicans are 9-6 in their division. And then the Kings are 9-6 in their division. So the Mavs need to make up a little ground with both of those. But
yeah,
I don't know if they'll catch the Pelicans, but they're only 2.5 games behind them. It's not like.
And okay, so that kind of gets to, so as far as where they are right now, so they're 7th in the West right now. Only, as you mentioned, 2.5 games behind the Pelicans for the 5 spot. I have a hard time imagining that the Pelicans would find a way in the final 13, 14 games to lose 3 games in the middle of that for the Mavericks to have enough to be able to climb up to get to 5.
Past that team. That team could do anything. That team could win the title. That team could be out in one play-in game and like lose the last 14 games. That team is so up and down. It's so weird.
So realistically, where do you see the Mavericks finishing by the time we get to April 14th and the end of the regular season?
I think they get to 6. I think they do move up, get to 6, and then all of a sudden you're playing a Minnesota, or maybe Denver falls down, maybe the Thunder fall down, and you're playing one of those teams. Denver Mavs first round series would be
epic.
So it would be epic, but it'd be so disheartening because I think the Mavericks would not win that series, and I think that they would not win it pretty easily. And I think that would be so tough, where you make it, you fight, you claw, you figure out who you are, you do all that, you get to the end, and then you just face a buzzsaw in the first round of the Nuggets. Anybody else, I feel like they have much better chance, and I would maybe even consider picking them against a Thunder, a Timberwolves, a Clippers, a Pelicans, like whoever else but Denver's the one where I'm like, yeah, I just don't think they're not gonna play as bad as they did the other night, right? Like, let's not do the recency bias thing where you're coming off of a win and you go, all right, well, Jokic will score 16 points again in like the playoffs. That's just not happening.
No. It's funny because the Nuggets in their the last win that they had against Dallas, I think Jokic only scored 9 points in the game that they won by double digits, and that was an anomaly to watch that night, to see Nikola Jokic score less than double digits and the Nuggets still win that game comfortably going away. But I told somebody this the other day that if the Mavericks got matched up against Oklahoma City in the first round, and let's say in a 2-7 matchup, I would confidently pick the Mavericks to win that series. Now, it would probably go 6 or 7 games in that first round series, but I wouldn't have a problem picking Dallas in a 7-game series against Oklahoma City if it was a 2-7 matchup in that way, or even if it was a 2-7 or a 3-6 matchup if it was Minnesota and Dallas. I wouldn't have a problem picking Dallas in that series against either Minnesota or Oklahoma City.
Yeah, you're catching young teams without a lot of experience. The Mavs have matched up well against Minnesota this season, but even before the trades, they matched up well with them. Like, Luka just picks them apart, takes Gobert completely out of the game, which changes it. Where does Cat fit into all this, and how does he match up with them? And then the Thunder, like, literally 0 playoff experience. Like, I think Mike Muscala has the most playoff experience on their team.
Right.
And then Gordon Hayward probably, who like doesn't have a lot either. He's only played like 20 something games in the playoffs because he's always hurt. And so, yeah, you're talking about just a brand new experience for that team. And so they're good teams. It's not like push them completely out of the way, but like the Mavs they are built for the playoffs in a way where they've got some defenders. They've got 2 guys that can just get their offense whenever they want against whoever they want. And here they are.
All I know is that the Mavericks, who played San Antonio on Tuesday, better come with their A game, because I know San Antonio isn't a great team, but one thing they are doing these days much better, they're competing at a much better level. And while they had a nice little comeback against Brooklyn on Sunday, they were able to get the win in overtime. Victor Wembanyama had some insane stat line, which is something that we say pretty much every night, anytime Victor Wembanyama steps on the floor at this point. But the Mavericks need to come to play, because San Antonio is going to compete in that game. But I like their chances. I thought that the Mavericks would need to have 50 wins to comfortably feel like they could be in the top 6. I mean, right now, that means they would have to go 11-3 in their final 14 games to get to 50 wins. I don't know if I see 11-3. I could comfortably see at this point, 9-5, 10-4 to get to
predicting
48.
Predicting a record in a schedule is speaking my language. Love that. Let's go game by game, and let's break down how they'll win and lose each game.
Are you serious?
No, I hate this. This is Isaac and I always used to make fun of this when the schedule would come out and people would be like, all right, let's predict the Mavs record through the schedule. And you're like, there's just too much weird stuff that happens. And this team especially, you have no idea what they're going to do night to night, right? Like they lose the Pacers in a way that makes you just feel like everything is crashing down and the Mavs have nothing and there's no infrastructure and nothing has been built. And then they beat the Nuggets. It's like, I don't know. Not predicting
that's
kind of
look, those are the highs and lows of an 82 game season. And look, I made the analogy on the recap episode I did, after the Nuggets game. The basketball gods giveth and the basketball gods taketh away, because the way that they took that game from the Mavericks against the Cleveland Cavaliers, when Max Strus going nuclear with 15 points in the fourth quarter, knocking down a 60-foot buzzer beater to win that game. The basketballs giveth right back with Kyrie Irving hitting one of the most incredible shots that you'll ever see in your life. Those are the way that the game kind of gives and takes away when you're watching NBA basketball.
Them's the breaks.
Final thoughts before we get out of here today. Where are you with this team? How are you feeling after getting that incredible win against Denver, and what you want to see from this team for the rest of the final 14 games of this season?
Feeling encouraged, feeling like, I don't know, we could see anything the rest of the stretch, because think about the insane things we've seen so far this season. I mean, just the list is, I tweeted the list. Remember the Luka Doncic shot against the Nets? That game winner against the sideline, that was insane. The 30-0 comeback loss against the Thunder. Luka had 50 on Christmas against the Suns. He had 73 against the Hawks this season. The Max Strus shot we saw, Gafford hit 33 shots in a row. The Luka 30-point triple-double streak that was longer than anybody else in history. And then the Kyrie WTF floater. Like, just an insane list of things that have happened this season that, like, this team, anything could happen.
And there's still 14 games left.
That's what I'm saying. We could add to this list before the end of it.
It should be a wild ride for this team who has given us a lot of highs, a lot of lows as well. But I think none bigger than what we just saw on Sunday with Kyrie Irving hitting an absolutely epic buzzer beater to beat the reigning NBA champion Denver Nuggets. The Mavericks get back on the floor on Tuesday when they take on the San Antonio Spurs. Then they will be back at home on Thursday to take on the Utah Jazz before a 5-game road trip, their longest road trip of the post-All-Star break schedule. And then we'll see where things are for the Mavericks when they take on Sacramento a couple times before the end of March. Nick, tell the folks where they can find you, what you got going on, man.
Locked On Mavs on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and then at Nick Van Exit on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok.
Nick does an amazing job covering this team, a cavalcade of stars that he parades out every single week, from Reggie Atatula to Dana Larson to, you've had Mark Followell on the show. My man, Slightly Biased. Shout out to him because he's getting his love these days. That's a mad man.
Slightly Biased is one of one in NBA media.
Yes, he is a madman. I enjoy what he does on a daily basis because he is the most unique guy in this space right now, and shout out to him for doing what he does. So check Nick out every single day, literally every single day on Locked On Mavs. He'll have you covered for everything Mavericks basketball. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Mavs. Again, appreciate Nick Angstadt of Locked On Mavs for joining me here on this episode. You can download and subscribe to Inside the Mavs, the official Mavericks podcast of 97.1 The Freak, wherever you get your podcast for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. And you can also listen to the podcast on my YouTube channel here at Kevin Gray Sports and like and comment on the video as well. Until Wednesday, I'm here on Inside the Mavs. My name is Kevin Gray, and I'll talk to you then. Have a great day.
I'd like to thank Spectrum for allowing me to get through the end part of this show.